those videos regarding a question I saw in a YouTube video of Judge Napolitano to Ray McGovern, which is right here. I'm pretty sure I put the link in the description, but in case I didn't put the link in the description, I'm just gonna put it right here in the comments too. So the link. So I'll just put the link with no. I'll mention it here for now. So Ray McGovern is a source of an intelligence community source of Judge Napolitano. I'm using a definition of intelligence community to mean the three branches of government, but and the exceptions and exception nature tied to them, such as anything. The state offices, the state offices of people tied to them, the locations, anyone associated with it. And see, because other countries share here. I don't know anyone from China. Hello, China. But all the other countries in the news, as friends and whatever they describe themselves, allies, all that, enemies, their inclusions over here and there through the difference of that is also used. So I could discern where and how they're leaving out all that is hyper evidentially recorded. America's founders and China's founders and Russia's founders and Ukraine's founders, demonstrably. The suburbs were designed before they were born. There were more than 13 colonies in America, and America's founders had to counter extort the people at 13 positions within them. And the laws were so crazy against everyone. They were torture against everyone. They were extortion against everyone. They were slavery against everyone. And per method. And it was sustained to apply people against each other, hurt each other, and or help each other exactly the way the breaching method needed people to make. Criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and negative treatments at the same time to conceal its identity and to keep its identity of relativity to all instances, names, and things, and problems blamed on other things, others ourselves, what it caused and kept from some ancient times before our modern country's messengers were even born. Messengers because they didn't have free speech. To an extent, they did not have free speech. America's founders had to counter extort the other founders, and they left us proofs of that we're supposed to decipher. So they put fake things in the databases about America's founders owning slaves. And then they pretend that's legitimate readings of evidences. And to hide that, they're lying, they're putting fake conversations with people. And they're getting away with it because they could discern who uses correlation with which American history and other histories were not supposed to leave out how the branches of government were criminally foreign influenced. So our nation's people, the people of the human species body, volume science, has been abridged since some ancient times. And that made a whole bunch, it made people value all groupings of humanity, including countries, including groupings of countries, all tactical ulterior, as systems and as meanings and value systems and progressions, tactical ulterior from the one that has us individual finite, simultaneously as value with group differences, male, female, ages, areas, sexes, and then species volume simultaneously, volume slash S this way. Three, in the and the other species bodies are manifest this way. And they have these qualities, aspects, and natures. Whites of eyes, black pupils, different color eyes, the same color eyes at the same time sometimes. Exception nature. Look at the eyes of the giraffe. See, there are proofs that there are proofs that they tactically denatured the ground below our feet. Across the globe, everywhere the species body is, even where the most beautiful locations, is a landscape theater. The suburbs are designed tactically denatured, let alone the cities. See, the cities unfolded while it was measuring and maintaining how the suburbs were tactically denatured was causing negative and is causing negative value nature progressions acts of nature. There are hardly any worms alive at all in the soil anymore. The worms used to walk into the water. I'm using the word walk. I'm not. They walk into the water even when it was not raining. But worms, they walk into puddles. They walk in and then they go there. And so there's always a food supply. And they walked into the bodies of water. And more and more, little by little, they took this away and made people not realize. And they say, oh, they took it away. But what they took away was denatured. So what they're trying to go back to is denatured too. Then the only way everyone could get this right is by going by its system, and that begins with syntax and with nature behind it that is not denying and is not leaving apart from reason. These are systems tactical terror from nature's. Our countries have had the means to transverse the earth with carrying weapons, but they left us in this rat trap that wants to be called a rat trap, so we get the fakes of the law to say, oh, why are you calling the rat? And what are you trying to hide? Because they've been and they get away with it because they've been putting fake things in databases. They put roles with predicate acts, with facts, with child abused kids, with our histories taught wrong. That's child abuse. That becomes adults who self-value that because it was self-valued simultaneously. Uses of the science is abridged. Oh, but that's my job. I teach this science. I teach this science. In other words. And then A through Z, they have the campuses, what they teach the same and what they teach different, used to measure and maintain other than differences course as nature teaches it, being taught, having been taught. So while it's being taught, that's increasingly evaluating that having been. This is roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and of precedents, and of uses of names, and of uses of truth for lies, and to pretend. In other words, people want to do their jobs, and so how they're going to debate with their job with their boss, and that nature of argument is being used to speak for the Constitution unabridged, and they're forcing people to entertain that. That's why people stay stuck with voting, pretending it means what it doesn't, with real motivations for it, but those aren't really the ones, and they wouldn't even have that. In other words, this breaching method maintains that. It maintains all formal identities of law, that not being able to afford the short words and convictions proper, which uses correlation by where and how the three branches of government, the exceptions tied to them, as intelligence community. They have roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and countries, intelligence communities, how actually have shared and how direct not to say anything for a whole bunch of reasons there and here. And the good reasons, I don't know about China being here. I know Korea, Japan, Germany, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, they all have roles with the World Trade Center attack through other names involved. Former Director of FBI Robert Luskin's involved with this. The family members of judges and prosecutors are involved with this. Overt criminal enterprises are involved with this. They are kept at the same time, their kids and adults needing to hide life progressions at places with databases and at places like mental health facilities associated with medical campuses. No, those families with the intelligence community they're directed not to say things, and they use that truth to hide things. So they communicate it, but they're lying about that. They've been Weathersfield police confessed that they switched names and forged names, and that they're going to pretend other. The roles with gun threats and roles with poison threats and predicate acts with facts, federal evidence is crimes, federal rules of evidence is crimes, wire crime methods, roles with the news at the same time as the interbranch switching and forging names, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. So then they're making topics about if we're being provocative or not. They're incapable of the answer proper. They're incapable of handling the quality of fact-cheating nature, so the short words of people and needing to pretend for other motivations and needs and believing such too, because also tactical delusions, the people raw are at the same time are the people of the law, A through Z. The beginning of the Quran and the beginning of the Old Testament, for example, even if one believes about it or not, and the counters to it, they were supposed to be able to, well, we don't believe it, we read it and we understand it, and it's how it, in other words, if they read the book and they understood it honestly, they wouldn't state collusions because the book said all that they need to understand. The beginning of the Old Testament, for example, says the only thing that people need to know is right here at the beginning, where the names of the people of the sciences are going to come together. And our names of our countries are sciences of the human species volume system, a hypernative system. That's why it shows us, each of our countries are sickly, distinctly victim of this method. And to hide how sickly, non-distinctly from some ancient times effectively, even with all the ways discerned. See, these are, in other words, this is not just uses of that known and unknown but fathomable, and things that weren't and that are discovered, and what they do too, how they react to that as made individually grouped and together as our country's names, which are not real bodies. See, nature's system uses anything or nature that is going to deny anything that's a real evolution as a body of anything that's going to deny the value of sequence truth or finite truths and forced groupthink, forced fake motivations, or uses of exceptions, tactical ulterior from how nature uses them and used them, which is hyper additionally in the past connected to whatever happened. Even if everyone agrees to lie about that and believe other, and we're wrong, it's going to demonstrate to that. The value of truth before the order of the finite is a distinct identity of itself, the identity of the hyper-simultaneous nature. This is more probable and practical, too, as it is observable. For example, humanity didn't invent why we have two eyes, and other species have two eyes. And they didn't invent it. So there is an identity of relativity, too, and they have a theory of relativity. They have a whole bunch of countries that already possessed America, and they forced they were searching out who was behind the faked motives that colonists that America's founders A through Z had to pretend. But there were also ones that some of those were part of the ones were not our founders who had to counter extort the other founders. George Washington and James Madison. We're supposed to treat the torture of and the extortion of both George Washington and James Madison honestly. And when we do that honestly, it brings up the slavery method, which witch trials are about. How we have not been taught that witch trials are about slavery, and why and how the witch trials place was left right next to where George Washington had to counter extort those roles with slavery at the last of the 13 positions counter extorted within the more than 13 colonies, themselves divided too. So things that are complicated and simple, they were described tactical ulterior. What was simple is described pretended other, and what was complicated is pretended other. There's a difference between complicated and extensive. So this is important too, because of how the names stack as one of the things that people do, where a foreign method, not here nor there, but everywhere, and using the difference to hide behind as our own or as them. Now, where and how this is manifest and motivated is not just the observable ways. Like, for example, relative to where and how our campuses, our countries share roles with different departments at different at colleges and universities that are in collusion with fire campuses, medical campuses, child campuses, the differences between the campuses, the differences, um, you know, this is a use of all location slash S. And so the courts switch and forge names, have collusions with the news, and roles with natures that are interculturally and intraculturally. Identity theft, fraud, slander method roles. And that's one of the things that is manifest non-distinctly, where names and countries themselves names A through Z are victims of the same breaching method that we have not countered, even though it's overtly slash simultaneously insidiously recorded in ways additional to and simultaneous, which is not complicated. People try and pretend that's complicated. You have black people's whites of eyes. You're a little kid in New York City. You know that the government is fake. Still, it has never been liberated. The suburbs were that cannot. If the suburbs were involved with the torture of and the extortion of our founders. People are pretending to not to realize that, and also with delusions. They've been getting away with it because this breaching method knew that everyone was, oh, well, this is what I know, and this is my value, but I know about this, I know about that. And they're leaving out exception, and they're using that to get over on what people know. Ways. Black people's whites of eyes. So there are phrases like criminal justice. They have subject treatments. They have A, therefore B logic. They go back and forth. Criminally foreign influence simultaneously, tactically delusions raw. Now, how this happens is how they got away with keeping legitimate roles, being unmarked police forms, as roles actually with overt criminal enterprises, criminally foreign influence, private ones. And the difference of that and of our own and of other countries' intelligence families, extended families, the difference of their relationships with each other. So a whole bunch of people tied to Justa Kovinskis and to people associated with the Morrow family and people next to at spots next to where the Wethersfield police are now and where they used to be. And names that went to a Taekwondo place have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders on me. And when the guy asked to make a fake exception of knowing me, and he asked me to go there per Joe DeMoro. I didn't go there to see him on my own. The guy involved with the kids that were in my class that I never had classes with. They were know how you could have someone in your how can you be in your class? That's what they told the class of this, the class of '93. In other words, people that were part of the class of '93 had roles with Taekwondo guy, people, foreign and domestic, people with Japan, people with Korea, people with Germany, involved with medical offenders, people involved with people from Russia, people from Ukraine. They have roles with the same names as shipping locations, UPS, CN, post office next to it. Can't record the police forms, they record themselves. So these are people involved with Westfield Police with the name McGee. We have men and women in the intelligence families involved on and off the campuses. Intelligence never had the integrity to be with kids or adults. They have been putting fake things in the Wethersfield databases, fake ties to the kids and their parents, fake ties to nature, ties to people too, that strangers. With the police that fake ties to me that I never had ties to them ever. In other words, in fact, they have predicate acts with me since I was a kid. And I caught them with a principal child abuser. Now these punks are pretending they knew me in the past and they're using that stuff. And there are other people involved with this through time. Some of them are dead. There's a Chris Walters before he died. Also brought up his roles with the doctors associated with him and his mother were involved with cocaine and with police forms and courts forms with cocaine and foreign bodies. People on all sides of the campuses and public schools and private school kids. The public school and the private school kids come in and go into different people classes and stuff, and they spread rumors and make it look like it's real because now it's someone from a private school on a public school campus. And, and people hear their names. Then they see someone write down. These are things that people orchestrated, like the former director of the FBI had roles with the orchestrations, but also they only know to an extent because they have been used remotely, criminally foreign influence. This is manifest where and how they have been used remotely, with and as all investigators and instances and created, fabricated to keep that going, used as a breaching method to pretend they had the ability to speak for the law properly, and they never did. So they have collusions with all kinds of predicate acts with fax methods since they're kids, and then they take their oaths and they hide that and uses of it since they're kids. They lie about our motivations for using their names, the ones we don't know at all, and the ones we only know that came in pretended passions and emotions because they were being used remotely by people to plant fake motivations. In the past, they were used for criminally foreign influence uses of investigators. A whole bunch of people will tell you this. You ask them correctly, otherwise they'll passionately pretend other. So the intelligence of community affected. They were shown by the breaching method there needs to lock this in by using social conversations with people, interstates and international. Then, in other words, Wethersfield Interbranch has roles. Criminally foreign influence since founding, they can't defend their logic and/or nor their natures and/or nor their switching names and afford to discern what is actually recorded. So the police make threats by confessing their roles with only one guy named McGee and three different guys involved with a whole bunch of different falsified police reports of the Wethersfield police involved with extortion of me, torture of me, and slavery of me. Fact, tribute nature, why since I was a kid. But it's also against everyone. And the people who deny this, it's relative to that. It's remote uses of them too. And when it's not the case, they have delusions relative. Otherwise, we have these answers. In other words, say other than we're allowed to discern because people are defending the book out of sequence. The beginning of the Quran too says a Muslim, if you're not, as long as you're honest about if you're going to call the identity that's hyper simultaneous Allah or not, that's all it takes to be a good Muslim. And and as long as they're honest, if they don't agree with it, you're supposed to love and care for those people too. This is about science. And the Muslim, if they don't want to pray in a mosque for any reason, they see not to pray in a mosque, they're not supposed to. It says all that it takes to be a good Muslim is to agree honestly about the use of the name. So we have all fakes with the name. That's because everyone's hurting each other at the sides. And that's so they could play games with where and how only fakes spoke for how to counter things like slavery. They're keeping it blamed on other things, others ourselves, other than nature has been demonstrating to ourselves. And they've been using all exceptions and exceptionate to pretend other. So there are people with Johnson and Wales in Rhode Island and a Bryant University who have roles with Wethersfield elections, locations with predicate acts, and with criminally foreign influence uses of the military roles, and state police families, interstates, Rhode Island, Vermont, Connecticut, involved with their family members on off crime scenes, and then again through time, a number of people have roles with home break-ins and threats associated with principal child offender, associated with the Facebook page of that child offender that forced him. One of the roles was Joshua Julian. He also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that his roles with people with the name Smith and with people with a Confederate flag who are being influenced by agencies and courts to roles with them and Wethersfield police and other police forms, and as timed roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, with little games with culture, with black themed, white themed, KKK themed military police forms, people involved with the state corrections office, people involved with the state judicial offices, involved with this Joshua Julian and others I don't know that are planting fake behavior, fake descriptions of their motivations with the foreign bodies. Now there's a Phil Collo who's further on my street involved with violence and credible threats and predicate acts with the police forms and people on off whiting forensics through time involved with their patients and criminals and investigators, their family members themselves had roles with, and with the per their used being and having been used remotely, tactically delusions wrought, but also criminally foreign influence, fact cheating nature aspects and methods. These are people that pretend they have the right to deny what we say, to leave out to prefer to leave out the evidences and to change what's said and to hide with how they've been recording fake things into databases and their actual motivations for that. So this is where they are involved now, increasingly making confessions and demonstrations of people like with names Scalora, intercities and interstates, with cousins of theirs also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with FBI and Weathersfield police with home break-ins years ago too, and wire crime acts and methods, falsified police reports roles with them. Also, Mr. Neville and others with Cromwell locations, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, have been used to use my name behind my back in their roles with Highcrest Street, with identity theft, fraud, slander, fake ties to me, fake natures of ties to me, and people had conversations with my teachers about me behind my back, with mayors involved with child offenders, including sexual and medical abuses of principals' kids for the abuses of others' kids, identity theft, fraud, slander. People tied with a Kevin Harris involved with the principal, Mr. Murphy, who also in his obituary had roles with the Korean War. And these are people involved with the O'Brien family and a Violet family and others with the name Collo, involved with the wire crimes of Weathersfield police and other police forms and planting fake motives. It has something to do with their roles with people with the name Perone and Eric Jensen and people that live to have conjunctions to and conversations with a former Mayor Gold. He's involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and uses of that for abuses of kids, even sexual, medical, and people at their elderly homes. Abuses of them sick ways through sick people, so they keep blamed on other things, others, or self. The real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts of nature. See those veteran affairs homes? It has something to do with their roles with West Hartford locations, shopping centers, and malls too. The ones all along Route 3, and with these people involved with the intercultural and intercultural narratives and natures that have this black themed in that stuff. It has relativity to the people making subject treatments at campuses that are supposed to be adult. They're using phrases like adult while they're criminally foreign influenced. So they got to back up because they're involved with criminal predicate acts way worse than the little kids they're putting in jails that have families involved predicate acts with child offenders on and off campuses and roles with names next to the campuses planting evidences, illusions while they pretend to perceive them and film it for that because they have remote uses of all sides in criminal and civil cases. At the same time with the news planting evidences, the victims and the victims' advocates, shared sequence shift planting illusions with the interbrand switching names, all fake things going in their databases. Collusions with wire crime acts and methods, and they're just replacing it. WTNH has faked emails. The intelligence community on off their location have roles with this. The FBI is right next to them. People involved with those buildings there, involved with foreign and domestic medical families, involved with child offenders, including sexual, medical, or overt criminal enterprises. People run into triages who are forced for mental evaluations for using their mouths for trying to overcome people involved with the gangs with the interbranch too at the same time. So they're the little fake punks. They got caught in live regression traps because they're using uses of location /s, the shopping centers, the malls. Mike Roberts is another one involved with people that had conversations with teachers I never had a conversation with personally, and behind my back, involved increasingly stacking predicate acts with factual identity, theft, fraud, slander, fake motivation planting, even when they have real ones mixed in. The sequence shift roles. And with the names forging, and with the fake sides of issues, they put whole arrays and fake motivations. It has something to do increasingly people on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the state corrections offices, involved with recordings. They shouldn't have hid what I caught with the KKK black themed collusions. This is when I was a kid, and I caught more and more. I don't even know their names, all of them. They all know my name. That's one of the things. With only black people in Weathersfield, they're involved with criminally foreign influence, rat trap, you know, people using them as remote. Get them on paper, the ones using them remote. If they want to deny this, get them on paper too. The ones who know my name. Get them on paper. I need them on paper with the other ones. I still haven't had a response for the KKK theme, Confederate flag theme, black themes, switching names, forging names, roles with the military, with the rape threats and the abuses of the kids with medical families too at the campus at the same time with the principal child offender. They should fear God for being on CCSU and people involved with the Pandolfs in this Ray Reynolds and this Lynn. I don't know her last name in that Westbrook. And what they're doing with Central Connecticut State University and the Britton homes and campuses and people how they think, where they use other people's names, their sense and sensibilities. Get down, get down, get them. They have Dean Alford. They have a Dean. I mean Dean also involved with that with another college. But that's through people, everyone speaking rather than playing games that way with judges and prosecutors planting with their family members and people tied to them on campuses. Foreign and domestic military on and off the Britain campuses involved all wrong Route 175 with people that put fake illusions to pretend I was lying when I said I don't know them. They can't be honest about the actual instances because they're involved putting predicate acts with facts with the intelligence community, but with the campuses, intercities. So right, they want to be victims, and so that's what we have no control of that. Or get involved with other people's conversations. You're going to leave out details then, or get on paper with the interbranch involved with you. Get them on now. Now, these are people, these are the sources of Judge Napolitano. He has roles with usage databases since he was a kid. Judge Napolitano, I mean, since he reported in one of his videos, he had 400 arraignments in one day. So he's a shock and awe, no. Because there should, the only reason there would be 400 indictments in one day, arraignments in one day, rather, would be because they left out and self-valued having been left out while they're leaving out. What our founders communicate for themselves. There were others ourselves blamed for things our founders told us to blame on the torture extortion method. Fear God. Follow mandated law for your branch of government now, people, please. Say, follow mandated law for Anthony. Give him a response who disbelieves. Anything I said. Pick one thing I said. Have him just say disbelieve. Pick one name in sequence. People of Weathersfield, make sure they get it. So I have to keep mentioning people's names, all this. Get them on paper, one name in sequence. I asked you guys many times. See how they're hiding things? So Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch of people tied to a Leahy family, intercities, and people with the name Violet, putting fake conversations, things they intercede. They have military next to the on off the state capitol and those buildings there. As people on my street involved with them, criminally foreign influence. Get them on paper. On the people on Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University involved with them through decades, their whole careers since they were kids involved with predicate acts. Now these are involved with the ones switching and forging names, and the punks in the background with the evidence. Get them on paper, one name in sequence. These are people in this with World Trade Center predicate acts and roles with the news locations, using the right to lie, but they don't have the right to lie. Using the right to tell truth, hiding that how they're directed to lie, where they don't have the right to do that. And the difference of it, in other words, follow mandated law for them. That means Focus on that predicate acts I noted to you and get them on paper now. Now, someone move.